Dawn in early January, and another Rotorua holiday season is in full swing. The district is enjoying the usual summer influx of visitors, international and domestic. All around, holidaymakers are making the most of our natural assets. Around the town, there are plenty of diversions for young and old.
G'day.
Accommodation providers are fully stretched, city retailers are smiling. Life is good. At this time of the year, the Daily Post tends to tailor its front page pretty much to cater for visitor interests. There's a report of another trouble-free New Year's Eve celebration, and then day by day, the good news stories abound. The positive atmosphere is reinforced by the news that last year was Rotorua's warmest for more than 40 years, and one of the driest. In fact, the district has recorded the second lowest annual rainfall since records began over 100 years ago. Released in the first week of 2003, the Rotorua District Council's State of the Environment report paints an optimistic picture, despite recent concerns over declining water quality in local lakes. This report states that while 6 lakes do have problems, out of 31 sites surveyed, 26 were quite suitable for bathing. Only Lake Rotoiti's Okawa Bay and Lakes Okaro and Rotoehu are considered to be below par. As the Rotorua district basks in the summer sunshine, this Daily Post headline suggests we count our blessings, and most do just that. There's even space for some front page trivia, a story involving plastic ducks. The Fat Dog Cafe on Arawa Street occupies one of Rotorua's oldest commercial buildings and is one of the busiest eating venues in town. In keeping with the Fat Dog's relaxed atmosphere and to help busy restaurant staff keep track of orders, numbered plastic ducks are used. But there's a problem. The souveniring habits of some of the Fat Dog's patrons mean some ducks are going AWOL, with constant replacements being required. Now the story goes, the cafe has received a postcard from one of these errant waterfowl in the form of a photo, showing the bird to be travelling through the German city of Regensburg. Having a great time, thank you very much, and promising to stay in touch. But while Rotorua's visitors are definitely in holiday mode, for the city's residents, there are plenty of local issues still bubbling away. Some of them a hangover from the previous year. In December, Pukeroa Orua Whara head, Malcolm Short, had one more try at convincing the town that his proposal for a casino was a good idea by running an informal referendum in the Daily Post. Since then, there have been almost 350 positive responses, with only 9 against, according to Malcolm Short. But it's an underwhelming result compared with Maureen Waka's campaign against the casino back at the start of the decade, when 7,000 signed her petition to provide a fairly resounding thumbs down. Despite yet another casino setback, Malcolm Short does see the RDC finally give its seal of approval to the expansion plans for the Central Mall's warehouse tenant. An editorial in the Daily Post supports the decision as an important but necessary step in the growth of Rotorua's retail activity, and possibly an inevitable one, particularly in the view of Mayor Graham Hall, who sees the development of Rotorua Central as part and parcel of influences that have been shaping change to the central business district since the 1980s.
It was fine when we had all the government departments there and there was a lot of people in the CBD, but when they all moved out and the government made the decision to set them up in Hamilton and centralise them in Wellington and Auckland and some of the bigger cities, that meant that our CBD, our central retail area, was too big for the population, too many shops. It was never going to be possible to fill them all. We were accepting something that had to happen in our community because we didn't have anywhere else for big blocks to go, big shopping areas to go, and we didn't want them to go out into the suburbs. We've had 2 examples of that and both of them had fallen over. So we felt that to have them close by would be far better, and we should work hard to change the zoning there so that the big block shops can go in there, and they're right next door to the CBD, in fact part of it really.
Still, it has been a hard-fought battle. The final go-ahead was not a unanimous decision, and some on the council still have misgivings.
It was not only the retailers actually, it was the landlords as well, and people who'd invested in property, retail property and commercial property within the CBD, who were saying by expanding the warehouse, you're going to alienate the rest of the CBD. There's going to be a lot of shop closures, etc., etc.
In the opening month of 2003, the District Council is still coming to terms with the implications of last year's new Local Government Act. This requires much higher considerations of transparency in council operations, more attention to forward planning up to 20 years into the future. It means more public consultation and a lot more paperwork. But the new local body requirements are less onerous for some than others, like new council member Janet Weber.
Regularly through the meetings, councillors would refer to the good old days when we didn't have the new Local Government Act. So there was a harkening back to when they felt that they had more of they could take the mandate from what they believed was right and make it happen, where we now were required to have a lot more community consultation, and a lot of people didn't like that. And the associated costs of community consultation, the bigger agendas that you have to have, the far more work has to be done through the annual plan and the long-term plan. Had to do long-term plans now. And though they all did that sort of stuff, it was just much more comprehensive, and a lot of them found that work onerous. But for me, I didn't know anything else, so it was fine. And I just had to learn the new stuff, and I tried not to learn the old stuff. So,
elected as the West Ward replacement for Johnny Lepper, she joins the council still feeling the effects of his passing 3 months ago.
When I went in there, it felt a really kind of sad. You know, it was quite a heavy kind of atmosphere, and people, you know, did their best to be welcoming and things like that. But I mean, it wasn't. There was certainly a sense of sadness about the place, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, eventually I went and asked a staff member after a couple of months, because you all get allocated cubby holes with your name on just to put your agendas in when you don't need them, and Johnny's name was still on that one for months, and so eventually I bravely went and said to a staff member, could you do something, like, where do I put my stuff, you know. It took a few months, definitely a few months, and that you definitely knew that everyone was grieving for Johnny, and particularly the mayor and the deputy mayor, but all of them missed him. So it was quite difficult to fit in. Yeah.
January 2003, and Graham Hall is halfway through his 4th term as Mayor of Rotorua, and getting used to the idea of working with a new right-hand man.
The things that Johnny had a real strength of, nobody else could match Johnny in that respect.
Trevor Maxwell is settling into his new role as Deputy Mayor, becoming more involved in the public relations side of District Council activities.
Tourism, Maori culture and things like that, international visits, they were things that I'd been doing all my life anyway, even before I got onto council.
But the job of easing the Mayor's burden of social engagements is not an easy one.
Graham was a mayor that had a finger on the pulse and going for it. You go try and get to everything. And so there wasn't much sometimes for one to do, but they'd even joke and say he'd go to the opening of a letterbox.
Yes, it was certainly a different role for Trevor than what Johnny had.
Towards the end of 2002, a block of Mamaku forest became the focus of a major altercation between one of Rotorua's leading business concerns and some powerful community lobby groups. At issue was 540 hectares of scenic quality reserve owned by Forest Research since the 1980s, who now wanted to put the land up for sale to the highest bidder. Opposing them were groups like the Forest and Bird Society, who wanted the area saved for a reserve administered by the Department of Conservation. It was the sort of ongoing stoush that a weekly newspaper like the Rotorua Review really enjoys.
In this particular case at Mamaku, I think the Labour Party were just increasing the heft of their being in office. And if I remember, I interviewed Chris Carter out there at the time, and there was quite a hullabaloo over it, and it was something we followed because we knew the Daily Post wouldn't touch certain things, and the environment wasn't one that they particularly pursued. But we felt, being basically a Liberal paper, that was something we should for the interest of readership.
Now in January, the Rotorua Review is able to show a triumphant Steve Chadwick after helping finesse a deal for local nature lovers which sees Rotorua's newest reserve, in effect a new national park, come into being. A deal has been negotiated which provides financial compensation for FRI and the block put into the care of the Department of Conservation. And the Review also reports on another coup for nature lovers, this time at Lake O'Carrigan. With financial assistance from Environment Bay of Plenty and cooperation from local landowners, volunteers are developing a birdwatcher's paradise. After years of planning and months of work, an impressive walkway winding across wetlands and around the lakeshore is almost ready to be open for public use. Steve Chadwick may have had her report card ticked for success on environmental matters, but now into her second term as Rotorua's MP, there are other local issues of a more intractable nature that keep her telephone line busy.
Sometimes I really scratch my head because I'd get called here at home about policing issues.
A perceived shortfall in police numbers in Rotorua, slow police response times, and the closure of community police stations have all featured in recent years. And it wouldn't be the holiday season without the dark shadows cast by tourist crime. 2003 is no different. There are the usual instances of petty pilfering from camper vans and cars around the city and at surrounding tourist attractions. Perhaps it's the relaxed and friendly atmosphere that lulls visitors into a false sense of security. Certainly there are plenty of beauty spots where the isolation makes tourist vehicles an easy target for theft, despite the warning signs. But it is a particularly disturbing physical attack on some tourists at popular Kerosene Creek, and this alarming Daily Post headline in the middle of January that brings matters to a head. Letters to the editor quickly follow, criticising a general lack of a strong police presence in the district, and especially in the central city. Joining forces with ready-to-retail Scotty Watson, District Councillor Charles Sturt makes a stern demand for action.
This was not only Scotty, but the whole community. They had a guts full of the youth crime. Here we are, we'd spent all this money on revitalising the CBD, and the graffiti and the crime, the night crime. So there were some major issues with young people.
There may be some other dark clouds on the horizon as well, especially in the direction of Lake Rotorua. This is the time of the year when the lake's recreational use is at its highest. Pleasure craft owners are preparing for their popular annual Parade of Wooden Boats Day. But the chairman of the Lake's Water Quality Society releases this letter to the editor of the Daily Post. It points out that the encouraging tone contained in the District Council's environmental report with respect to health of Rotorua's lakes is entirely misleading, and that claims of improvement are simply not true. For the moment, it's an opinion that seems to leave the District Council unswayed.
That had been, I think, really ignored to a certain extent. There had been studies, but there hadn't been enough political action to make something happen at that point. So yes, I think that there was a bit of, I felt that people were ignoring it a wee bit.
Anniversary weekend comes and goes. Most of the district's domestic visitors are heading home, tired but happy. Local schools reopened for the first term of 2003, and what is generally the hottest part of summer is still to come. The long spell of dry weather has already browned the surrounding hills and farmland, and it's about to contribute to factors that will seriously disturb that era of District Council complacency over lake water quality issues.